morning, Laruga.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining me here in this interview. You are in Stockholm, I'm in Barcelona right now. And it's been like 2 months in Barcelona, we've been in a lockdown. That's not the situation in Sweden. You haven't been in lockdown.
No, there's just been guidelines.
Right. So here in Barcelona, we've been affected in our daily Mysore practice in a very radical way, of course. And in Sweden, it's been a little bit different. How do you cope with the situation in Sweden?
To me, life doesn't seem that much different, besides the fact that there's something that's affecting the whole world. You know, I guess where I'm the most impacted is I'm unable to travel, where I had a pretty extensive travel schedule for this spring, and all of that was canceled. But as far as day-to-day life here in Stockholm, it's just feels really normal. It just feels like people are acting quite normal, even though that there are the guidelines to as far as like cleanliness and washing hands, and there's certain standards in restaurants now. There's certain standards in the yoga studios as well. They do talk about distancing, like when you're out in public, but I don't really see that being like, I've seen people on escalators close together. I don't know. It doesn't really seem like people are that bothered by it. So, in my day-to-day life here where I live, I don't really feel so much of a difference.
So you're working in Stockholm and you're doing your daily Mysore practice at your school?
Yeah, so our Mysore program has continued on. Since I've been traveling so much, my boyfriend David has been taking it over, and I have been practicing with the group pretty much the majority of the time, and I am starting to teach 1 or 2 times a week. Starting in this month. So that has continued. It has never stopped. It was never canceled. The Mysore program has just continued moving forward.
How has changed because we work in the Ashtanga, we work so close to people and even the practitioners close to each other, and with the adjustments as well. Has it changed anything now? Do you think it will change anything in the future?
Well, for now, the protocol that we're going by is more distance between the mats. And usually we'll have anywhere from 5 to 6 people in a row. Now we've gone down to 3 people in a row. And also there's hand sanitizer for people if they want to use before they start. And then for teachers, for the teacher and for the assistants, there's hand sanitizer that they can use between giving adjustments.
Right, so there is physical contact as well. There has not been guidelines according to the Swedish government how to if you have to change anything, you are able to touch people anyway.
Oh yeah, and the thing is of course if a student came in and said I don't want any adjustments, I don't want to be touched, we would of course honor that request. I mean, we're not into forcing adjustments on people, but it's just really people have been they come and they just don't seem to mind. I think again with the hand sanitizer, maybe that gives a little bit more security. But even with that, which I'm not even like a big fan of hand sanitizer. I mean, the jury's still out on that, of how effective that is. If you overdo it for too long, it's actually ineffective. Yeah. So the thing is I feel like you also with that we have to be a bit, conservative. So. But again, most students will shower right after practice, and it's important to wash hands thoroughly after you practice. And, all of those things people seem to be really taking responsibility for.
Yeah, I'm sure that they are very much. And what do you think it will happen? Because you haven't been affected in the way that many other people have been affected in the world, but maybe you have an overview of what's going on with the online classes. What's your opinion about that in the sense, how do you think people need to give the classes, or is it a good thing at all to do online classes?
Well, it's interesting. I think everyone's going to have to abide by the rule that maybe the country that they're living in, they're going to have to abide by whatever those rules are. If I speak personally, I feel no threat. I feel no concern to touch other people. We're, as humans, we're tribal beings, we're community based beings. So, um, I find it strange that people are trying to set some type of precedent that we're not supposed to be close. I find that a little bit strange. I understand for a time being, but I'm a little skeptical when it comes to this being long term, but who knows? Like, who knows what the feeling or the sentiment will be. Um, so with that being said, obviously a lot of things have pivoted over to online classes. And that seems to go over really well because people can still feel that they are connected to a community or to their teacher, are still inspired to practice, to continue to learn and grow, even though they're in isolation, which I think is a really positive thing. So it is interesting how quickly people were able to adapt and
Right.
to keep that moving. So, I mean, in many ways, that's inspiring. It's kind of like, there's no stopping people to
Yeah.
want to practice or to continue their yoga. But so many things are uncertain looking forward into the future. But for me personally, I just really, I think we have to be aware of things that are going on in the world, but I just can't bring it into a level of hysteria or to live in fear. I don't live in fear today, and I just don't see myself doing that in the future.
Which is part of the path you've been taking, being a yogini and practicing too. That affects also that point of view, how to deal with this kind of situations. In a way, what are your ideas about practicing yoga and confronting a situation like this? What's the benefits of having the yoga with us to cope with this?
Well, I think yoga helps us to stay calm and centered in times of uncertainty. I think that's one of the main benefits, of a yoga practice. I mean, if I reflect back in my life of how long I have done the yoga practice, the Ashtanga yoga practice, I've gone through many times of uncertainty, ups and downs of life. This doesn't make me special at all. This is just about being human, and when I reflect on that, the practice was so integral to keep me grounded, to keep me centered, to help me to be calm, to help guide me to feel that inner strength in times where sometimes I felt like maybe I was losing it in my external life.
Right.
And it's just such a powerful thing to have. And, I remember one time in my life where I literally felt like the only thing I have is this practice.
Right.
Like literally like nothing in the bank, didn't have a place to live. Um, didn't know what the future held for me, but I had the practice and I got on my mat every day. And this is something where you start to also learn that in times of strife and struggle, it does pass as well. In time, it does pass. Um, and having like a constant, like this routine, this ritual to come onto the mat, just to find that inner connection, to find that inner resolve, it starts to mean so much more than even just, what pose am I doing or how far have I gone in the practice. And this is really where and I've also received, direct messages and things from students. Really, they sense that they have felt it on a deeper level, possibly living in isolation and having to practice on their own. And I've even received messages from people where they're just like, if I didn't have this, it's the only thing that's really kind of getting me through and helping me to stay positive.
Yeah.
So it's such a powerful thing.
Let's hope that the majority of people find strength somehow, even if they don't practice yoga. And let's hope for some kind of change for humanity in general, for the world, What are your insights about what are the possibilities that may open, or the pitfalls or the threats?
I just find that maybe we're living in an age now where we need to awaken. We need to challenge ourselves to further awaken and be aware. And I feel like there's a surge of growth in humanity, but at the same time, I think there's also um, this aspect of a lot of fear is being kind of pumped out, whether that's in the media, whether that's through different like governmental streams. And um, I think it's important that we continue just to question and to. I'm not saying that, I'm not talking about just like revolt or all these things without doing your research, but it is important to just be aware and to, in one sense, I guess if I only speak personally, I mean, all of this has just caused me to just take a pause, to not be reactive with everything that I'm hearing in the news, to take a little bit of a deeper look, a deeper stock on things. Um, there's a lot of misinformation. And I think in one way too, like living in Sweden, but also being an American and observing some of the American news, I've been hearing so many conflicting reports, and a lot of the things they reported on Sweden were actually 100% false. And so it's like you can't always just accept everything that you hear on the news. There might be another side that was missed. There might be something else, that another side of the story that wasn't told. I'm not trying to implicate anyone and to say that all media outlets are necessarily bad, but a lot of times it's only a snapshot. It's only a snapshot. It's maybe only like a sensationalized headline to just really, pull people in, but it doesn't always give the full story, the full picture.
Yeah, it's a very tough endeavor they have to deal with, and maybe they don't even give the right picture. I remember your post on Instagram about the article from the New York Times, and that's another thing too. I mean, talking about the fear, because the way Sweden deal with this is quite different from the rest of the world, and maybe it has to do a lot of different reasons, whatever the Swedish way of thinking. But also maybe because they are not based on fear, which is maybe what's going on around the world. Not only the concern about health, which is of course there, but is this fear of fear in a way that's been put in the world in this situation, whereas in Sweden it's different.
Well, I have to say that, well, I mean, I've been living here for about 11 years now, and I just have to say I couldn't be more impressed with how the government handled the situation. And I guess even the statistics show that even with its citizens here, that the approval rating is quite high from how the government has handled the situation. I think it's almost like 80% or something. I mean, you can't make everybody happy, but
Yeah.
which is quite impressive. I mean, there's been daily conferences on the virus where, they are stating like how many new cases there are and how many deaths and all these types of things. But at the same time, I just feel like it's so balanced. And the fact that they're entrusting the citizens to abide by the protocols at the best that they can without kind of this martial law type of attitude, just, I think it just eases people's um, it eases the anxiety. It eases like sometimes I feel like some of the way things are communicated, it just exacerbates fears and anxiety. Does it mean that we ignore that there's a serious virus out there? No. But at the same time, it's out there. It's out there. And let's do the best that we can, and let's stay balanced, let's stay calm, let's stay focused on what we can do. And and of course, not everyone's going to agree, and not every protocol is going to be perfect for every country and every community. There might have to be changes because of population density or how people live. I mean, again, in Stockholm, I think it's really one of the highest rated cities that has single family homes or single person homes,
It is.
so it's like that's, maybe things can roll a little bit differently here, because of those types of statistics. But I think there still is a model that can still be used in other communities in the world, though.
Yeah, I was reading an article today talking about they probably going to be a lot of phobias going on in the future now, whereas maybe
Yeah, which is so
and
crazy because I feel like in a way it starts to get into the cracks of people's psyche. And to be honest with you, I just will have no hand in it. It's interesting. I've learned, maybe it comes with getting older and like going even deeper into the practice, but I've really understood that I have to have a nice healthy boundary around myself too.
yeah,
And I honestly feel no fear. If someone bumps into me, I'm unconcerned, which has
yeah,
happened. I just am not. And even, yeah, like last week I did my first Mysore class here in a long time, or actually the first Mysore class since like kind of the virus kind of broke.
yeah,
And I just had no concern. Did I wash my hands after? Yes, I did, but I don't feel fear to offer an adjustment. And if the student is willing to receive it, I'm happy to do my job. And I think the other beautiful thing about long-term practice is just to be in the understanding that, my life is, life after life, there is going to be death and there's going to be a passing on. And no day is guaranteed. And it's just, I want to live in life, and I do not want to live in fear. And I don't want to live in fear of other human beings. I just
no,
absolutely
absolutely,
won't do it.
yeah,
I'm not going to do
absolutely.
it. And if somebody doesn't want me to go near them, of course, I'm not going to force it. I don't think that's respectful. But, someone wants a hug, I touch them, whatever. It's like, it just doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, yeah. Without going too deep in that, the Swedish society compared to the American society is not, it's not based on fear as the American society, but also there was a philosopher who was over 70 the other day talking about what they are doing, maybe putting lockdown the older people and saying, I mean, doesn't work because we want to live life. We don't want to be, I mean, whatever happens, we need to live life. And that's maybe one of the dangers that this situation may do to the world, is like there is no celebration of life. It's just getting into another level of fear again, once again.
Yeah, and I know I don't want to make it political because I understand that it is a real virus. But at the same time, I always thought quarantine meant the sick stay at home. It's like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
the sick stay at home. And I do understand that, there's a theory that healthy people can be carriers and all these things. But um that's the other thing that in Sweden that I really appreciated. It was literally like, you have a tickle in your throat, stay home. Like you got even just a little bit of something, just stay home.
yeah,
And but at the same time, how long can it, continue to go on like this? Because again, I know I'm not a scientist or anything, but the virus is out there.
yeah,
you know, I'm not sure, like, it's just how long that's going to be, but it's out there. And um, the other thing that I feel like needs to be taking a closer look at is immunity and health, and, you know, continuing to take responsibility of our own health as well, and how that is proceeded moving forward too.
yeah. In that sense, it's one of the goals of yoga, even if it's not the deepest goal. But health is of a deep concern for the yoga practitioners. So we have a tool there to work. I mean, and the only fact that people in Sweden is not the same case, but for people that are being locked down in small rooms, just having a little mat and having such a practice, it's been a bless. So we are blessed to have the practice of yoga. And what would you say the difference between the Ashtanga and other yoga styles during the lockdown?
Yeah, I feel that when you're teaching a Mysore class, it does, one part of a Mysore class is offering adjustments. So whereas with other methods or styles of yoga, that maybe the contact isn't as close. So I think that's one of the main factors when it comes to the difference between Ashtanga and other styles. Of course, we do lead classes too, like a lead primary series class where um, students don't necessarily need many adjustments, but that is really the defining factor.
Yeah, and it shows really that maybe the stream of online classes of Ashtanga, it's never seen before as other yoga styles, just because of that particularity that Ashtanga has. So the online certainly has changed something in the meanwhile. And maybe it's going to still be there in the future, more online classes than before in the Ashtanga system also. Don't you think so?
Well, I mean, definitely people who have never taught online have been doing it for the first time in the last few months. So it might be something where people are like, "Oh, I didn't really know this was a tool."
Right.
And they're getting like their feet wet in this new experience. So maybe it will be a tool that people will maintain on some level. Um, I personally don't feel so drawn to teach Mysore online. I feel
Right.
I actually could never just take money from people from Mysore online. I don't think to me, it's like, it's not the same because I need to hear the student's breath. I'm very sensitive to energy. I need to feel an energy, and understanding how to give recommendations or to move them forward or to feel that they're ready for progressing in the practice.
Yeah.
Um, Workshops are a little different. Lead classes are different. I mean, I have done a workshop online, and that's a bit different, very instructional, where you're just giving a lot of information. Students can take notes. It's not as much like hands-on. So I see that as being an approach. But Mysore, I'm a bit skeptical at this point. I don't know, that might change, but excuse me. But I feel like Mysore class is so energetic. And
Yeah.
again, for me personally, with the teaching, I really need to hear the breath. I need to be in tune with it. I need to be in tune with the energy of the student. And I guess in my experience, so many things are like nonverbal in like the energy field, especially as I mature even more as a teacher. I just find that to be so important because I don't teach through the mind alone. There's a lot of other things kind of working through me when I'm like one-on-one with students, with a group of students in a room.
There's been some economical disaster for a lot of teachers or shalas, and even more for perhaps those places that organized workshops and retreats for people. They having a hard time.
Yeah.
So I mean, let's. I don't know if you have anything that you like to share about that.
Well, I think the thing with the virus is that I mean, it's something I said early on a while ago, that if you haven't been infected, you've definitely been affected. Like, I don't think this has touched everyone in the world on some level, unless you truly, truly were living in isolation somewhere, like off the grid, away from, the rest of humanity. But lots of people have lost their jobs, lost their income, or has seen it dramatically drop. And this is something that makes it so much more difficult and challenging, because also people are living in more isolation and possibly feeling more disconnected. And, that's also another concern. And this is where I don't think everyone is going to agree, because some people think that life should keep on moving and the economy should keep going, and other people think that no, like all lives we should be taking this super seriously, and no one should ever be vulnerable to the virus. So I find personally that this really speaks to the fact that we are a human family, that we are a global family. When something like this starts to kind of spread across the world, it really shows how truly connected that we all are. And I mean, I hate to say that it's happening on like a negative side, but we are, and we are connected, and it's something that we have to take a look at more fully, hopefully on a more positive side, where it can be a positive force if we really take that in, because there's so much things that happen where it's causing people to separate further, and to maybe not look at certain people from certain crosses of life or cultures is these people over there, instead of somebody that we can feel more connected to. I mean, that's another reason why it concerns me that there's also, I don't know how long this kind of isolation will be, but the thing is that it does make people quite vulnerable, because we start to kind of sit with ourselves, which can be a very good thing, but also it can not be so great if we're just kind of going in circles in the mind, and being able to connect with others helps us to kind of see greater perspective, or actually just feel support and energy from other people. So
Yeah.
I know, such a long answer, and I don't even think I answered it correctly, but it's just like,
Yeah,
it's
but
such a
but you went
complex
to
issue.
giving you some ideas that I think are very interesting anyway, and I wanted to hear your thoughts about that anyway. So I'm very happy also. The question, and we don't need to touch it if you don't want, was that it's been affecting a lot of people economically. Ashtanga teachers, shalas, and retreat places that live from this thing. So that will affect the Ashtanga community in a way. Yeah, I mean, that's because it's on a personal level for us as Ashtanga practitioners. But it really does affect the near future and the long future. And perhaps because of those ideas that you were talking about too. That
Well,
I know.
small businesses are definitely being affected,
Yeah.
like, and most yoga studios are considered a small business,
Yeah.
which is really sad, because I'm not going to name names, there's other corporations who have actually seen a huge increase in revenue during this
Right.
time. So it is hit people very hard. And also the thing is there's also people that I posted something on my Instagram stories a few days ago about just the migrant workers in India. People are just collapsing. They're not dying from the virus. They're dying from commuting, hundreds of kilometers just to work,
Yeah.
because they can't go on a bus. So like what is really sad is that as we start to see the haves and the have-nots, and it really shows a huge break there. And this is where I'm quite concerned, because um, there's quite a few vulnerable people in the world that are being disregarded and forgotten. And again, just prefacing what I mentioned earlier, being a global family, I mean, these are issues that are huge, and something like this really highlights it, and sheds light on it for sure. Not everybody
Yeah.
wants to look at it, but it's the harsh reality.
It shows also as you say, the haves and have-nots is the lack of resilience of not have an income for just a few weeks, and that's it. Everything goes down. It shows also how vulnerable everything is in many ways, how precarious situations exist in the world in reality when everything collapses so fast.
Well, I would just leave with why does it need to collapse? I'm just interested in what's going to happen months after this, because it's going to benefit certain people's agendas. So this is something that, I don't know, it's a question people should be asking.
Yeah, let's pray for a future of change here on the positive way. Do you have anything else you'd like to talk, Laruga? Because I'm very pleased and happy now.
No, I mean, I don't have any huge things to say. I just feel like it's important. It has always been important for me to be as healthy as possible, and I think this situation just highlights that even more. I remember recently hearing something too that it's for immunity baseline. You really have to look at the air that you breathe, the water that you drink, and the food that you eat.
Yeah.
And, not everyone might be in like a non-polluted environment, but it's something where you have to take time to like get out in nature, get some sunlight. Not always easy if you have to live in isolation, but those are like the three baselines that are hugely important. And then beyond that is adequate sleep and keeping your stress levels and your cortisol levels low as much as possible. And exercise.
It really highlights that the health concern really had the power to stop the world in one big break. Of course, they didn't want to have the health system to collapse, but showing that health at the very end does really matters. And there is a window of opportunity too with talking about pollution. Like, for instance, here in Barcelona, the air is so clean. They allow us to go out in the mornings for 1 hour in the morning. So I went to the mountain and I saw Barcelona. And it's been like somebody just cleaned my glasses because it was bright and it was clear. That's
Yeah.
yeah, it's incredible. We had at sometimes the same levels as in Stockholm, which is as a big city is quite clean in a way. So I really hope so, because yeah, the air is extremely important. Okay, Laruga. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us and your wisdom. And I hope everything's going to be fine in Stockholm. And I wish you all the best, Laruga. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.